often contemplative before they make major decisions. How does one, or should one, react after careful consideration of a major decision? Nehemiah set out to rebuild Jerusalem's wall after praying and surveying its ruins. The book of Nehemiah is about one man's love, dedication, and faithfulness to both his God and his country. It is a journal or memoir of one man's determination to make a difference for his people, to rebuild, in spite of enormous opposition from their enemies and detractors. The book demonstrates how one person can motivate a whole nation to accomplish things that they would not be able to do under normal circumstances. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "Then I said unto them, Ye see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come, let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach." Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 17. Nehemiah did not tell anyone, the priests, nobles, rulers, or even the rest of the people, what the Lord had led in his heart and the favor he granted him through the king to rebuild the walls. Why did he keep it a secret? One reason is to hide it from their enemies, until everything is ready and all plans are finalized, so they cannot jeopardize the work. Nehemiah has already seen that Sanballat and Tobiah want to oppose this work, and will soon see them do it. Another reason would be, probably, that he kept them away from the people until everything was in place to avoid discouragement for them, because of the immensity of the job facing them. So Nehemiah, as an individual, could be excluded from the suffering, being that he was one of the highest positions of that time, a cupbearer to the most powerful king. However, he identifies with the suffering of his people. He sees himself as a member of the suffering community. He never allowed his personal comfort in the king's palace blind him to the suffering of his people in Judah, or to separate him from the community of his people. Rather, he includes himself, saying, "You see the distress that we are in." And great leaders never allow personal gains and comfort entice them away from their calling or accomplishing what they have been called to do. To assure them of the possibility of the work ahead and gain their support, Nehemiah tells the assembly how God's hand has been with him in the plan, and how God has so far provided for him in the project. Multiple times, both Nehemiah and his contemporary, Ezra, speak of the good hand of the Lord being upon them as a sign of his blessing. Nehemiah informs the leaders of Israel also of the king's approval and support, morally and materially. Nehemiah never doubted that he was on a mission for God. God's hand was upon him not only to reconstruct the wall, but to establish the economic and social stability of the Jewish community as well. In answer to this challenge of his authority, Nehemiah affirms the ultimate source of his authority. He does not attribute it to the king, even though he actually has the king's backing and the fact that the king was the authority the enemies were appealing to. Nehemiah instead attributes his authority to the God of heaven, though God used the king as the vessel to accomplish God's purpose. Nehemiah declares boldly, "The God of heaven is guiding their work. The hecklers have no right to stop the work, neither do they have portion in Jerusalem." So here's our lesson. Many American communities are crumbling around the people who live there. Slumlords, a lack of funding rooted in historical inequities, and unethical policing practices account for much of the problem, but cleanliness and maintenance are problems that the residents can solve. Should a church's vision for its community include upkeep and maintenance? What are some ways the church can motivate members to clean up and maintain their neighborhoods? What are some ways the church can pressure the city's leaders as Nehemiah did so that they take action? Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire, for who we truly seek is you.